The room went completely silent the moment she answered the question. 10 years earlier, they had mocked her for wearing thrift store clothes, skipping school trips, and bringing cheap lunches to class. Tonight, at the reunion, they expected her to walk in embarrassed, still struggling, still beneath them. And at first glance, it looked like they were right. No designerdres. No luxury car. No glamorous success story. But what happened next changed the entire room. Because while they spent years chasing money and status, Emma Carter had quietly built something far more powerful. Something none of them could measure. And by the end of the night, the people who once looked down on her couldn't even meet her eyes. The first thing Emma noticed wasn't the laughter. It was the silence that came after someone said her name. Emma Carter, wow. I almost didn't recognize you. She turned slowly and forced a polite smile as a group of old classmates stood near the bar, dressed in expensive clothes that looked straight out of a fashion magazine. The reunion hall was filled with music, polished conversations, and the unspoken competition of who had become the most successful. Emma had almost decided not to come. For days she debated it. But deep down, a part of her needed closure. Hey, she said quietly. One woman with perfectly styled hair leaned toward her friend and whispered just loud enough for Emma to hear. Still looks poor after all these years. A few people laughed softly. The words didn't hit her like an attack. They settled slowly inside her, heavy and familiar, like something she had carried most of her life. Emma didn't react. She simply adjusted the sleeve of her simple navy blue dress and stepped farther into the room. Same building. Different people. Or maybe not so different after all. Back in high school, Emma had practically been invisible. Not because she wasn't smart. Actually, she had been one of the top students in the entire class. But her clothes were worn out. Her lunches were tiny. And she never joined school trips, parties, or expensive activities. Her mother worked 2 exhausting jobs just to keep the lights on. Emma worked after school to help pay bills. When survival becomes your daily focus, popularity doesn't matter much. Now 10 years later, not much about her appearance had changed. Emma. She turned and saw Daniel walking toward her. He was one of the only people back then who had ever treated her kindly. He looked older now. More tired somehow. But his smile was sincere. You actually came, he said. I almost didn't, Emma admitted. They spent a while catching up, talking about how quickly life had moved on. Daniel talked about his corporate career, the endless deadlines, the stress, and the burnout he couldn't seem to escape. Emma listened quietly, her calmness unchanged. So what about you? Daniel finally asked. What have you been doing all these years? Emma hesitated for a second. Not because she was ashamed. Because she already knew how most people would hear it. I run a small place, she said. Daniel looked curious. A community kitchen. He waited for her to continue. We provide meals for people who can't afford food. We also teach cooking skills and help people find work. Daniel blinked in surprise. Emma, that's incredible. She gave a small shrug. It's nothing huge. Just enough to help. Across the room, the same group from earlier burst into laughter again. One woman stood at the center of it. Lydia. Back in school, she had been the girl everyone admired. Perfect hair. Perfect clothes. Perfect life. She lifted her glass and smiled with fake sweetness. Hey Emma, she called out loudly. Still counting pennies. People could sense something coming. I guess you could say that, Emma replied evenly. Lydia smirked. Funny how some things never change. Emma nodded softly. You're right, she said. Some things really don't. She paused briefly, choosing her words carefully. I still care about things that can't be measured by a paycheck. The smiles around the room began to fade. Emma continued, not louder, just clearer. I measure success differently. She glanced around the room. Last winter, our kitchen helped more than 200 families avoid going hungry. The room stayed silent. 3 teenagers we train now have full-time jobs. She paused again. One of them just got his first apartment last month. Nobody laughed anymore. I'm not wealthy, Emma said simply. But I'm also not the same person I used to be. Lydia's confident smile weakened for the first time all night. Daniel looked at Emma with quiet admiration. Emma didn't stay much longer after that. She didn't need to. As she walked outside into the cold night air, she felt lighter than she had in years. Not because she had finally proved people wrong, but because she realized she no longer needed to. The street outside was calm and quiet. Her car wasn't expensive. Her life wasn't glamorous. But it belonged to her. Built through sleepless nights, difficult sacrifices, and a kind of strength the people inside that reunion had never taken the time to understand. Emma sat behind the wheel for a moment before starting the engine. Back in high school, she used to believe that one day she would have to show everyone they had underestimated her. But tonight, she understood something far more important. She never needed their approval in the first place. Because people who judge worth by money alone will never understand the kind of wealth that changes lives. And Emma, without fame, without headlines and without applause, had already become richer than any of them could ever imagine.